Well. Today we have something very interesting to cover, and this is the Warhammer boxes. And although this video is about the Warhammer boxes, it's also about something that's probably going to affect a ton of people in the future and anyone deciding to play World of Tanks console as we start to move towards what we've seen previously within World of Tanks on PC, and probably this being far more ludicrous than some of the ones that we've seen on PC. So let's take a deep dive into the Warhammer chests, what they have done when revamping the war chests that were already within the game and were, by all intents and purposes, an additional extra of the game. People typically either bought them or they didn't buy them, and they had, tanks that were already released, they'd been in the game a while, and that you could buy those certain tanks in order to, buy them outright or be able to pick them up within the loot boxes. You had the option of either one. This doesn't seem like it's going to be the case going forward with a lot of the new content that is coming within the game. At least that's what we can see from the outside perspective. I'm not a wargaming employee. I don't know what their plans are for future events, etc. But given that this is something that they seem to be doing now, and with the, Christmas event having a similar sort of thing, I could definitely see this going in a similar sort of manner. And now, the actual boxes themselves work exactly like any other war chest that we've previously had, but these ones are insanely ludicrous, and it's something I had to talk about because it's been in the game for a little while. They've been released on the 11th of February, and I certainly wouldn't ever recommend them to any one of my friends, my family, my enemies, anyone else. Personally, I would never recommend anyone should indulge themselves in practices like this, because it is utterly ludicrous and, in all intents and purposes, in some countries has been entirely banned, the use of loot boxes in general. And so, with that being said, we'll delve into exactly how much it will cost you to get some of the specifically available tanks that you could purchase previously, except now they're in a loot box and you can't buy them any other way, or at least maybe not until you're available to go ahead and purchase them. And yes, you can go ahead and buy the mega bundle for 78,000 gold, but in terms of just grabbing your hands on one of the tanks as opposed to every single one within the bundle with a load of other stuff that you absolutely probably don't want if you're just after one specific vehicle, yeah, 78,000 gold might actually be the thing that you want to buy, because we'll delve into exactly how much it's going to cost you comparatively to what this is actually going to cost you. Now then, in terms of the costs of the war chest, let's take a look at how much one of these is going to set you back. What are you actually getting from opening these up? How much are you going to have to spend? Well, if you want to buy just a singular war chest, it's $2.99. Now, for the future reference in this video, they'll be converted into pounds, because that is what I see when I jump into the game. Those values will be dependent on the region that you play World of Tanks Modern Armor in, and will probably be significantly different depending on that. But $2.99 is a singular war chest. You can buy them in higher packs, so 5 war chests is $14.99, which actually works out more expensive than if you were to just buy 5 singular war chests, because you'd save yourself like 3 or 4 cents or something like that. So nothing major, but definitely don't go buying the 5 Warhammer 40,000 war chests, as you'll spend more for buying more. Capitalism. 15 Warhammer 40k war chests are $39.99, and then 30 of them are $75. Now, considering the fact that we're talking about an in-game potential system where you're not guaranteed anything out of it, it's all based on drop rates. You guys know what that's called at the friendly casino, but essentially that is kind of what you're getting, except with one minor exclusion. In order for it to not be considered what we would call gambling, you do, in all fairness, get your hands on a specific amount of gold, which is stated somewhere here, a guaranteed bonus of 40 gold. Yes, in every chest. There you go, 40 gold for your $2.99 contribution, and a dice throw as to what else you get within that box. Now, you can probably see what kind of stance I am on when it comes to gambling or loot boxes or whatever you want to call them within video games. It's not specifically wargaming. This happens in a lot of different games, but seeing it introduced in its entirety and at the scale that it is in World of Tanks console is a little bit depressing, I won't lie. Especially considering that we never had this before, and we've always had some expensive bundles that you could purchase, but you could always buy the tanks that you want individually on their own without having to do this sort of thing. Now, you probably know the reason for that. It's because it's super expensive and it's probably gonna make wargaming more money. There's a reason why these things exist, is because they know that the fear of missing out, or the, just a few more boxes, just a few more, $100 bills, and I might just be able to get the tank that I was actually after. But anyway, moving on, the drop rates for these vehicles, or the actual vehicles themselves and all of the other bits. So you'll have a 40.4% drop rate for your standard commander. So those are just literally just a silver equivalent. I'm sure many of you who play the game already have a ton of 2D standard commanders that you probably don't want some more of, but they are, I believe, Warhammer specific limited edition commanders potentially. I don't know entirely if that is the case, but you can see here are some 2D standard commanders. I would assume, given that this is the Warhammer chest, that they are going to be those. You've got a 13% chance at a 3D hero commander, which are these ones here. So Volosad Thassius and Patricia Lazarian. So yeah, 13% on those. Emblems, 29% drop rate. These will be these ones here, I would assume. So, I mean, you're getting some emblems. I mean, all of this sort of stuff, to be honest with you, up from the free XP is stuff that you're not really too interested on. Now, here's a thing that you might laugh at, right? So, gold. Oh, gold, okay. In addition to the Emperor's Blessing. So this is additional amount of gold that you can get out of the boxes. Okay. Doesn't seem too bad. 0.01% drop rate. That sounds, reasonable when you look at it as a number. But bear in mind that this is a 0.01%, which means it is a 1 in 10,000 in order for you to actually hit this. And what do you get for a 1 in 10,000? Well, you get your hands on 40,000 gold. Whoa, what a load of gold. That must be amazing if you hit that. Maybe I'll go and open these boxes to be able to get myself a 40,000 gold payout. Remember, it's a 1 in 10,000 that is going to be the case. So, anyway, that will come in later. Because that is probably the most ludicrous out of all of them. We then have some silver, which is once again just another just thrown in thing that you get pretty much out of any of the loot boxes in the game, both now and previously. And then you have a premium tank and vehicle slot for 1.39% drop rate. Now, I've done a bit of analysis on all of these, and we've cracked out a little spreadsheet to showcase off exactly what all of this means, because these are just numbers. You can get confused in the numbers. We can mystify these numbers. People aren't going to realize. But I have made publicly available the entire spreadsheet. So if you want to take a look at how much it will cost you to pick up certain tanks within the game out of these loot boxes, then you'll be able to do that. It'll be publicly available. Every time that these shady practices come on, I will do the exact same thing and release a entire spreadsheet showing you exactly how much every single thing costs, broken down. There's a few assumptions in there based on the fact that There are 6 premium tanks in the game, or at least within these boxes, which are the Nemesis, the Teethbreaker, the Ignis Purgatio, the Reaper's Scythe, you got the Lemon Russ, and the Rogue of Dawn. For the sake of the analysis that we're doing, they are all weighted at the exact same out of all of them. Now, I have no idea if Wargaming weight the fact that a tier 10 is going to be rarer than a tier 8, for example. So maybe the actual percentage chance of a Nemesis is actually 0.15%, and a Reaper's Scythe as a tier 8 would be 0.3%. So you don't know exactly how they're broken down into the percentages, but for the sake of what I have done in the analysis is just blanketly saying that all of them have the exact same drop rate from the original premium tank and vehicle slot drop rate. So essentially 1.39% divided by 6 gives you 0.23%, I believe. Something like that, but we'll break that down in a second. So of course, if you already get a tank that you already own, so say you own all 6 of them, you will receive a premium tank that you already own, then you'll be compensated with 50% of the tank's value in gold instead, which, you know, 50% of the tank value in gold is a nice bonus, but why would you ever go ahead and buy more and more of these? Especially considering that the price, so essentially once you bought all or got yourself all of these, then it would be way better for you to actually go ahead and just buy gold. That is basically what I'm going to say. Because of the fact of how much it costs just to open enough to get one of those premium tanks. And of course you're only getting half the gold that you normally would. So there's also an anti-duplicate mechanic will be in place. So there you go. A receiver will have an equal chance. So they do indeed have an equal chance. And the anti-duplicate stops you from being able to get, you know, 2 of the same tank before you get the next one. So until you've got all 6, you'll just keep getting the ones that you don't already have. So if you already own a couple of them, you will then only ever have the chance of getting the ones that you don't already own until you get all of the tanks out of the loot box from what I can see. So there you go. The content of these chests include seasonal content that is subject to change. We advise you to open your chest during the current sale window to receive content from the current drop table. So if you buy them, open them straight away is basically what Wargaming's saying. And now it is time to get into the interesting bit. So jumping in, let me move this over so you guys get a good look at the spreadsheet. So this is the one that I will showcase off to you guys. It'll be in the description. So if you want to go ahead and calculate certain things, then you can do that as well. So first things first, I have got myself the different bundles. So we've calculated essentially the price per box that you buy. So obviously the more boxes, except from with the case of the 5 boxes, it will be cheaper for you to buy the bigger boxes. So that's why I've done a few different bits of analysis, one for each of the box types. If you were to buy 100 Warhammer boxes with just 1 per one, that's going to give you a cost. If you buy all of the boxes until you get whatever it is, and with 5, with 15, and with 30, and so that is going to kind of be how it works out. Of course, the problem is when you look at this sort of stuff is that a lot of people will buy 30 boxes because it's the cheapest in order to get what you want over a long period of time. But what happens if you buy a 30 box and then on the very next box that you got out of that new set of 30, you get the thing that you want, and then you've just spent, £62.49 for the what would have essentially got you at £2.49. So it is like a revolving, what's the best way to go? Is it to just buy the highest tier ones over a longer time period, or is it best to just buy all of them individually as singular ones and then hope that you get it that way? That's kind of how it will work. Because obviously the more that you've delved in, the more that you've bought. So if you bought 300 boxes, maybe you get all of the tanks within the first 150 and you've wasted half of your money, obviously. So yeah, that's kind of how the analysis is. I can't really, say that if you buy 2 5 boxes and then 21 boxes and a 15, I mean, I could do it, but it would just take way too long. So we'll just calculate it based on those couple of different ways of purchasing. So in terms of the gold, so we have a drop rate of 0.01%. Now, what I've done here is calculated the amount of money that it would cost you to guarantee yourself the gold drop. Based on the drop rates provided by Wargaming, how much would it cost you? Well, it would only cost you a house deposit in the UK in order for you to actually purchase this gold within the game, which is 40,000, remember. So 40,000 gold, probably like £110 in actual money if you just go out and buy it from the store. But you could spend £24,900 to be able to get it within these loot boxes. Definitely would recommend doing that, and definitely not something that you should double think about when you look at some of these mechanics that are within the game as an additional piece of content in quotation marks. £24,900 for the equivalent cost of just buying it in the game of £110-ish, roughly. Something in that region. I don't know the exact amount. It would be somewhere like that. £100, I don't know. But that's a crazy amount more. I can't even fathom anyone that would spend that much when you could simply just buy it in the actual real world. Now, of course, this is something that you shouldn't ever be buying the boxes for. It's probably just a incentive. It's one of those mind things that companies will do to make you think you're going to be the lucky one out of the 10,000 ones that are opened. Well, this next one that you get might just be that one box, but if you break it down into numbers, that is exactly how much it's going to cost you. And even if you bought the 30 boxes for the entirety to make that drop rate, it would cost you £20,830. £20,830 is the possible cheapest that you can get if you hit the drop rate exact. Now remember, drop rates are just a drop rate. You could open one and get it. You could open double the amount of these chests and not get a single one. So, the variance in what one person might get versus another is huge. So, you could get super unlucky and have to spend £40,000 to be able to get, the gold, which no one's actually doing. Hopefully, fingers crossed. And if you're watching this video, definitely in my recommendations, in my opinion, I would never recommend ever purchasing boxes in order to get gold out of them within World of Tanks Modern Armour, in my opinion. Then we move on to the premium tank. So how much is one of these premium tanks going to cost you? Well, you'll be pleasantly surprised that you can purchase remember, it could be any of the premium tanks. So this is based on just hitting a premium tank. How much are you going to have to spend on average to be able to actually get yourself a premium tank out of the boxes? Well, it would only be £179 at the maximum price and £149.86 at the minimum price based on the 30 boxes. So minimum price on average £150 basically, just under, to get a premium tank out of the boxes. Now I'm going to let that sink in. The equivalent cost in terms of gold would be somewhere in the region of about 50,000 gold. Somewhere in that region. Now, I don't know exactly. It would be different in different locations. It might be different depending on, how many boxes you open, how lucky you get. You could get lucky, you could get unlucky. But, yeah, on average, £150 for one. Now, we'll come back to the spreadsheet in a second, because you'll remember that you could just go out of your way and buy the mega bundle within the Warhammer store. Now, this bundle gives you absolutely everything that you could possibly want from the Warhammer bundle. for 78,000 gold. Okay, so you get all of the tanks, you get everything. You get absolutely everything related to the Warhammer event for 78,000 gold, which is around about £180, probably, somewhere like that, £200. I don't know the exact value. We could have a look, jump onto the console. You can work it out. 24,000 gold, I believe, is the maximum that you can buy. In the UK, it's about £65. So times that by 3 essentially, and that's the sort of region that you're looking at. So yeah, 65, 130, 195 plus an additional about £10 to get that additional amount of gold, because it will only get you 72,000 gold. So call it another 20 quid, so £210 to get absolutely everything, including all of the tanks. £210 versus the 150 for the chance at the tank that you might want out of the bundle. Okay, right. So, in what world would I open these then? I could get everything for an additional £60, or I could maybe get one premium tank. I could get all of the premium tanks for £210 roughly, or one premium tank for £149, which is probably not going to happen because you're going to have to roll over into the next box set of 30 that, you know, could end up costing you, you know, £100 or £200. So, you know, you're going to end up somewhere in that region, about 170 quid probably. I'm not going to lie. So, okay, we could spend an extra £40 guarantee everything. That would be my recommendation if you wanted all of these tanks and you had 200 and something pounds to spend on this game. Just clarifying, I'm never going to be spending money on any of these boxes or any of these ludicrously expensive bundles that Wargaming produce, because they make it seem like it's a good deal. Remember, £210 or something in that region just to pick up 6 tanks in the game. 6 tanks for £210. I mean, fair play to those whales who play this game. Do what you want with your money. Remember, this video is not to shame anyone that goes out and spends their money, but to inform you guys as to how much money these things are actually costing you when you do open them. Because you might just open them on the fly, think, I've got 60 quid, I'm going to open it. The chances of you actually getting anything that you want is very, very low. And then you can get sucked in and you've already invested 60 quid. So you're like, I'll invest another 60 quid. Then you don't get it. You invest another 60 quid. And by the time that you realize you should have just gone out and bought the whole damn bundle in the first place. So yeah, don't get sucked into this. So in terms of, say I wanted one specific tank. Now, usually within a reasonable game, you would just be able to go and buy that one thing that you want out of the game. That would make sense, wouldn't it? You know, I want this to buy it. I am willing to part way with my money so I can get this one thing. Well, if you want to do that within these boxes, which is the only way of specifically targeting one tank, and even then, do we really call it targeting when you're having to roll the dice to get the one that you actually want? Which is why we've done this in a way that it's essentially going to give you the price of if you get the most unlucky, so the maximum amount of money that you're going to spend if you hit the drop rate, which, as again, it's not guaranteed to hit any of the drop rates. You could end up doubling, so getting like 2 times as unlucky. You could, in theory, never ever get one, even if you just continuously, you know, rolled the dice constantly for the entirety of the thing. So that's why I really hate these sorts of practices within video games, especially in this sort of format where, you know, you don't have an option to do anything else if you want the tank. And then, of course, what I've done down here, so you'll be able to go on this if you want, you can select the tanks that you've already got within the game. So if I select the Teeth Breaker, we go over to the left. Do I own it? Yes or no? If no, then you'll see that the drop rates change for those tanks. These are equally weighted. It's essentially this premium tank drop rate and garage slot of 1.39% divided by the total amount of tanks that you don't already own, which gives you the drop rate for each individual tank. So say I want to target the Teeth Breaker and I already own the Reaper Scythe, the Lemon Rust and the Rogal Dawn. It will get rid of all of those out of the drop rate percentage, divide that premium tank percentage by the 3, and that is the percentage chance. Now over here on the right, this is how much money you're going to have to spend in order to guarantee that if you get unlucky and the tank that you wanted isn't the first tank or the second tank that you get, because there are 3 tanks available in the drop rate pool. So this is kind of like the worst case scenario. You get the first 2 out of the first 2 drops that you get, and then you have to get the third one, which would be that total price. So £537.41 if you wanted to get the specific tank and you got unlucky. And that's only having 3 of them, remember. £450 if you're buying the 30 Warhammer boxes, which once again, as we say, is probably not the correct price because you're going to overreach with the amount of boxes that you buy and end up with surplus boxes after you already have the tank that you want, which is another reason why the price per item is not necessarily entirely accurate, because you're going to buy more boxes than you actually need for the thing that you want, most likely. Maybe you get super lucky and you get it on the very last box that you open, but remember, that's a 1 in 30 chance. So yeah, well, it's not quite, but you get my drift. Anyway, what about if we didn't have any of them when we specifically wanted just one of the tanks? Well, this is where it becomes insane. £1,075 is the maximum that you could spend hitting the drop rate exactly every single time. £1,075 to guarantee yourself all 6 if you hit the drop rate exactly. As going as low as just under £900 with the 30 Warhammer boxes. So yeah, I mean, not quite sure what I would be wanting to spend my money on, like a, 5-star hotel in Greece or somewhere like that for 7 nights, or getting myself 6 tanks on a game. That's a really tough question. I think sat there with a mythos in hand and in an ice cold glass on a summer's day at 30 degrees, or the Teeth Breaker tank that I'll play for 5 games. Very, very difficult question to answer. Oh wait, no. Sorry, I would definitely rather be in Greece. So the fact that these are this much money, I've made the spreadsheet entirely available to you guys. You guys can make up your own opinions as to what you think about the true cost of some of these bundles. My thing with you is just absolutely never buy the Warhammer boxes. In my opinion, of course, it's just my opinion. You can do whatever you want with your boxes. I'm just giving you the breakdown of the costs, and from what I've seen of the costs, these are just way too high for me to ever want to spend my money on any of these. And so that's kind of what we're up against here when it comes to wanting the tank. Either you spend 200 and something pounds on just buying them outright, or you gamble away like 5 times the price potentially. Of course, these values are only the worst case, so they are probably not going to be as expensive as this, but you could, in theory, get this much in order to get what you want, and in fact you could get significantly worse. And the fact that the gold in there is basically a house deposit in the UK just made me laugh. It just made me laugh. So yeah, do what you want with your money, spend it on the boxes. At least now you are fully informed on what the costing of these boxes are. This is the concern that I had when I very first thought about the whole Christmas event, where they had these kind of boxes which were a bit weird, and the chances of getting things were very, very low. And so yeah, this is kind of where it seems to be heading, and I'm not liking the direction, but there you go. Hopefully, I wouldn't say enjoyed this video, but it was useful to you. Of course, everything's in the description, and I will see you in the next one. And I'll say goodbye to the Warhammer boxes. Goodbye.